Bob Hayward, a cop working patrol in Salt Lake City, Utah, was sitting in his car in front of his house on Hogan Street on June 18, 1975. He had just finished his shift when a beige Volkswagen Beetle drove by with its lights off, and he felt something was off. Howard knew his neighborhood really well and was sure the car didn't belong to anyone living there. He decided to check it out, so he followed the Volkswagen. It stopped in front of his neighbor's house, which was empty at the time since not all the family was home. Their two daughters, one 17 and the other 19, were alone inside. Howard turned on his high beams to read the car's license plate. The guy got scared and took off at full speed. Of course, Howard chased after him right away. The guy's car ran through the first stop sign and then another one, and Howard stayed right behind him because when he saw him running, he knew something was wrong and insisted on following him. After a while, he managed to corner him and stopped him at an abandoned gas station. The guy got out of the Fox car, hands up, wearing jeans, a black hoodie, and sneakers. His hair was dark and long, reaching his shoulders, and he smelled like weed. Howard aimed his gun at him. The guy said he was a lost college student, claimed he was just watching a movie at the drive-in theater, and swore he got lost on the way, but Howard had just passed by that theater a little while ago and the movie the guy mentioned, since he wasn't working. He realized the guy was lying, so he decided to search his car. When he looked through it, he found something strange. The passenger seat was missing, and in its place was an open bag with some really sketchy stuff. A ski mask, a crowbar, an ice pick, a cardboard box, garbage bags, gloves, women's stockings, a rope, and some wire. In the trunk, there were handcuffs. Howard told him, "I'm gonna arrest you tonight because you ran from the cops, and I'll ask the prosecutor to charge you with possession of burglary tools." So, they went to the station, took down his info, and took his picture. But after all that, there wasn't any crime directly linked to the tools they found on him, so they had to let him go on bail. He was suspicious of him and was convinced he was planning to break into his neighbor's house where the girls were alone. But what he didn't know was that this guy he arrested wasn't just anyone. He was actually Ted Bundy, the most notorious serial killer in American history. Catching him again wasn't going to be easy because Ted Bundy wasn't some crazy loud guy or a wild attacker. He was smart, organized, charismatic, and at the same time, he beat his victims to death. Today, I'm excited to tell you the story of Ted Bundy, the most notorious serial killer in American history. Everyone got their food and a cup of tea or coffee ready because today's story is about someone history just can't forget. After this video, neither will you. For those who stumbled upon this video by chance, we're a family of 4.5 million curious humans who love digging into strange topics and learning from them. Subscribe to our channel and be part of our journey to 1 million subscribers. You definitely won't regret it. We always say all stories, even if they're similar, aren't the same when I tell them to you. The 70s and 80s were the golden age of serial killers in America: Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, Charles Manson, and many others. But one of them was different: Ted Bundy. He was handsome, educated, and very charming. His full name was Theodore Robert Bundy, born on November 24, 1946. He was smart and grew up in a working-class family with pretty average financial means. He said himself he grew up in a great home with loving and devoted parents. He was one of 5 brothers and sisters. He and his siblings grew up as the center of their parents' lives, regularly attending church since his parents were Christian. They didn't drink or smoke. Our house didn't have any cigarettes, violence, or yelling between my dad and mom. Our home was respectful, close-knit, and disciplined. But not everything was perfect. Since my cousin was 3 years old, he started acting really strange. Once, when he was little, his aunt was sleeping and woke up to find him arranging all the kitchen knives around her while she was still lying down. When he played in the woods, he would kill and cut up rats. When he swam with the other kids, he always tried to drown them. What's even more important is that he never showed any regret for these things. For a while, he and his mom lived with his grandparents. His grandfather and grandmother were very religious. His grandfather was a deacon at the church, so he worked as a servant there. He was in church, but he was a violent guy, a racist, and used to hit his wife. He had a collection of movies and pictures that, honestly, are the kind of stuff you'd never want to see. He was smart and looked okay, but super shy and had no friends. Kids at school used to bully him. Sometimes he'd have violent outbursts. He never really fit in with the other kids, not even in his early college years. He was pretty much closed off and had almost no social life. The only good memory he had was when he bought a 1968 Volkswagen Beetle. That car gave him a feeling of freedom and control. Over time, Ted Bundy built a perfect mask. He's the confident, smooth, and attractive guy who graduated with a psychology degree and started dating girls. Then he went to law school, but honestly, he wasn't really into law. Since he was a teenager, he used to steal a lot. When he turned 18, his entire criminal record with the police got wiped clean. The law in Washington state, where he lived, says that any juvenile criminal records get automatically erased once you turn 18, as long as the crimes aren't super serious. He was mostly involved in petty thefts and minor offenses, so this law was meant to give young people a clean slate. A new chance without letting past mistakes from when they were kids affect their future. That's the loophole in the law. Erasing a criminal record from the police files made the whole U.S. regret that law because the urge to commit crimes kept growing inside them day by day. Now, at this point in their life, legally they're a clean slate and no one knows their past. Back on January 2, 1974, he broke into a student's house, kidnapped her, and then killed his first victim, a girl named Linda and Haley. All his victims were young, pretty girls. He'd approach them in public places pretending his hand was broken or that he was sick, asking them to help by carrying his stuff. He used to lure them into his car once they were convinced it was safe and saw he was a handsome guy who wasn't threatening. They trusted him, but he would hit them on the head until they passed out. Then he'd put them in his car, in the spot where the passenger seat used to be, take them to a secluded place, assault them, choke them brutally, and sometimes kill them. He even staged the bodies. Every month, the number of missing girls kept rising, starting in Washington and then in surrounding areas. People were terrified. The police were lost and didn't know what to do. Lots of people went to the police, telling them they had been at the places where the girls were kidnapped. They gave descriptions of many men. Meanwhile, the police they drew sketches of the kidnappers and published them in the newspapers, but nothing came of it. For a long time, no one knew who the culprit was or how to catch him. He stayed far away from suspicion. At that time, he was working with the Crime Fighting Committee in Seattle, writing advice to raise awareness among girls, and on top of that, he knew exactly how to hide all the evidence of his crimes. Back then, DNA tests hadn't even been invented yet, and police investigations were pretty weak. Police departments didn't share info with each other or between states, so everywhere the cops worked on their own cases without coordination. On August 11, 1974, Ted Bundy committed a crime and left behind an eyewitness who made a fatal mistake. An 18-year-old girl named Carol Duresh was driving a maroon 1974 Camaro, which was a brand new model. She entered the Sears Mall parking lot, parked her car under the lights, and started walking towards the building looking for books. She stopped in front of the bookstore when a well-dressed man approached her and introduced himself, saying he was Officer Ross from the Murray Police. He told her someone had tried to steal her car a little while ago and said they needed to check if anything was missing from her car. The girl immediately agreed and went with him too. The situation was that Carol searched inside her car but didn't find anything. The officer told her, "Good thing nothing was stolen, but they told me at the station they caught a suspect who's currently at the police station, so you need to come with us to file a report." Carol smelled a slight scent of alcohol and felt something was off because what he was saying didn't make much sense. But the man standing in front of her showed her a police badge, so she agreed. He told her, "You have to come with me in my car," and she agreed and went with him to his car. On the way, she was surprised to see it wasn't a police car, it was a Volkswagen Lumbar. Carol thought to herself, maybe he's a cop but working undercover. He had an unmarked civilian car. In America, it's pretty well known. If you've lived there or visited, you might have seen this. There are undercover cops who use unmarked cars. There are tons of YouTube videos showing this, where people are doing something wrong on the street and suddenly an unmarked car pulls up with the police lights on. Those are undercover cops. Cyril thought he was just a regular cop and was really nervous. But she got in the car with him. After a bit, he stopped near an elementary school and suddenly grabbed her hand and tried to tie her up. Cyril started screaming while he pulled out a gun, and she was terrified. He restrained her but didn't tie her to anything. After a while, she opened the door. The car jumped and he immediately stopped, parked behind it and hit it several times. Carol was raising her hands to protect herself and fighting with all her strength. Another car was coming. Carol tried to escape from him, sped towards the car, and got in with them. She went straight to the police and filed a report. She told them that Officer Rosen tried to kidnap her in his beige Volkswagen. And on top of that, he wanted to kill her. They took her statement and told her, "All right, we'll look for him in his car." They searched for him a lot, but didn't find him until 9 months later, when an officer from the same station where Carol had filed the report, named Bob Hayward, the guy I mentioned at the beginning of the video, showed up. He was standing by his car in front of his house when he saw a beige Volkswagen Passat driving down the street at night with its lights off. He followed it, and the car stopped in front of a house where there were only two girls. When he turned on his lights, the Volkswagen took off. Bob chased after it and cornered the driver near an abandoned gas station. He searched the guy and found the strange stuff I told you about at the beginning of the video. They took him to the station, like I said, they got his statement and took his picture, but there was nothing linking him to a crime, so they released him on bail. After he got out, this cop, Bob Hayward, remembered Carol's report and went to tell his brother. His brother, Captain Pete Hayward, used to work as a homicide detective. Bob told him everything, and his brother reported it to the county police office that I told you from the start to pay close attention to this, and remember how they connected the car to Carol's story, and also linked it to an older case from a year before Carol's report. Another girl from Castel and her friend went to the police and said they saw a sketch in the newspaper of the kidnapper everyone was talking about. One of the girls said the drawing looked like her boyfriend. She lived with him. She said he was a strange, scary guy, and she didn't know why he always had crutches at home. Also, there was always a bag of plaster at their place. Remember when I told you he acted like his arm was broken and wanted people to help him? She said he was violent to her and that she was scared of him, and he was always threatening her and warning her not to tell anyone about the stuff he had in the house. Most importantly, she said he used to disappear at night, usually on the nights when the girls went missing. Even more than that, she said he had a Volkswagen Beetle. The next day after they kicked him out, they issued an official arrest warrant and arrested him. They brought him back to the police station and talked to Carol, telling her, "Come, we want to show you some people. Maybe one of them is the officer you said was trying to kidnap you." They brought her in and lined up about 8 men, and among them was Ted Bundy. Right away, without any hesitation, she told them this is the story. In '76, Ted Bundy was sentenced to 15 years for the attempted kidnapping of Carol Duranche. As the investigation sped up, the police linked him to a new crime involving a 23-year-old woman named Karen Campbell. They suspected Ted was also the one who killed her. In October '76, Ted Bundy was moved to Colorado to face a new trial, this time for murder. That trial was supposed to be the end of the story, but sadly it wasn't. During this trial, Bundy decided to defend himself. He originally studied law and confidently represented himself to a scary degree. The judge even gave him the freedom to do so. Bigger than any other prisoner, he had a private room and office, unlimited phone calls, and access to the courtroom's law library. This was the only place where Bundy could move around without handcuffs or restraints. The trial was going on as usual, and during a break, Ted went to the library. His guard stayed outside to smoke a cigarette. It was a bright, sunny day. Ted Bundy jumped from the second floor. The fall was hard, but as soon as he hit the ground, he got up, crossed the street, climbed over a fence, and ran toward the river. After that, he headed for the mountains. His escape had been planned for weeks. He used to jump between the beds on the 2 floors to toughen up his legs. He memorized the route and practiced every day. He wore 2 layers of clothes under his prison uniform, trained to change clothes quickly, shaved his beard, and cut his hair. After he escaped, a woman entered the courtroom, shocked, and screamed to the guards, "I just saw a guy jump out of the window." The guards rushed over, but by the time they realized it was Bundy who jumped, 10 minutes had already passed since his escape. The police shut down the streets and sent police dogs into the mountains. They told people to lock their houses, and all the radios and newspapers were talking about the fugitive. There were 150 cops chasing the escaped killer. Ted Bundy was wandering through the mountains without any food. He had no money, no plan, just wearing a light shirt and pants. The only thing he had was a map of the area that he used during the trial. He spent the whole day walking through the mountains. The next day, it was cold and rainy. He was trying to cross a mountain called Aspen but couldn't make it, so he turned back. On the way back, he found a small cabin and stayed there the night. On the 3rd day, he left the cabin, but this time he was better prepared. He took some food from the cabin, warm clothes, and a rifle with him. During those 3 days, the FBI got involved, sending planes and helicopters after him. The place he was hiding in wasn't easy. lots of mountains and thick forest. Even with the map, it was tough. A huge storm hit and he got lost. The cold drained all his energy, and he started wandering around aimlessly. By mistake, he ended up back at the same cabin. There, he saw police footprints nearby. 5 whole days passed, and Bundy kept walking in the Colorado mountains. His feet swelled up, his food ran out, and in the end, he returned to Aspen City. He had only one chance to escape: find a car and run. Near a golf course, he spotted an old Cadillac, and surprise, the keys were inside. Of course, he stole it. It was the morning of the 6th day since his escape when cops saw the car driving erratically. They thought the driver was drunk and pulled it over. But the person inside wasn't drunk, Ted Bundy was skinny and exhausted. Imagine he lost 10 kilos. He was so worn out he couldn't even control the car steering wheel. His nose was scraped, and he was wearing glasses, but his appearance hadn't really changed. The police recognized him immediately and arrested him. The place where they caught him was just 2 blocks away from where he had escaped. They took him back to prison, but this time he was charged with escape too. He had to go to court in handcuffs with his legs tied. But Bundy didn't care. Right from the moment he went back to his cell, he started planning another escape. After some time in prison, a guard brought him a meal and set it on the table. Bundy didn't even reach out to touch the food. He was planning a new escape with Andy and didn't waste any time. He got a saw from another prisoner and spent weeks trying to make a hole under the cover of a loose light fixture on the ceiling. His plan was to crawl through that hole, so he had to lose weight. He kept complaining about the food and eating very little on purpose, so no one would suspect he was starving himself. The guard thought Ted was just moody and weird. Nothing more. But Ted was preparing himself during his time in prison. He raised $700 from donations by people who sympathized with his case. He kept using the hole and going out to explore as much as he could. He found a way to get to an opening of an apartment. The apartment actually belonged to a prison guard. He crawled through the ventilation until he reached the opening. When he got there, he heard 2 voices, the guard and his wife, having dinner. Ted just sat quietly, waiting for the right moment. The wife said, "What do you think about going to watch a movie tonight?" The guard replied, "Sure, why not?" Shortly after, Ted heard the sound of their door closing. He went down to the apartment, headed straight to the bedroom, put on jeans, a gray sweatshirt, and blue shoes, then left the house. But this time, the prison didn't realize Ted had escaped until 17 hours later. That's when it became clear the inmate was gone. Disappeared for a long time on January 14, 1978, in the Holly area, Florida, late at night, around 3 a.m., just before dawn, inside the University of Florida campus. Everything was quiet, the city parties were over, and all the clubs were closed. A girl named Netneri was coming back from a date with her boyfriend. She arrived at the girls' dorm where she lived, called Chi Omega. She noticed the door was open and went inside. The lights were on, which surprised her. Suddenly, she heard a loud noise upstairs. Then the sound of a man quickly running down the stairs holding something that looked like a stick or a bat. He opened the door fast and ran away. Netneri shouted to the other girls. And suddenly everyone realized there was a dangerous intruder inside the house that night. 4 girls were attacked. There were 2 girls, and one of them died after that attack. Ted Bundy tried to kidnap a lot of girls but failed every time until he got to Kimberly Leach, a 12-year-old girl who was running in the rain leaving the basketball court heading to her next class. He signaled her with his hand to come over, and she went, never to return. On February 15, 1978, an officer named David Lee was on patrol in the city of Pensacola when an orange Volkswagen with its lights off passed by him. He knew the area well and realized that car wasn't from around there. He followed it, checked the plate, and found out it was stolen. He turned on the patrol lights and started chasing the driver, who tried to escape. David kept after him, and after a while, the car stopped. Bundy definitely felt something weird, like he'd seen this scene before. But this time, he didn't get out of the car with his hands up or say he was a lost college student after watching a film. This time, he decided to fight. He got out of the car, and the cop aimed his gun at him as soon as he approached to cuff him. Bundy hit him in the face and tried to knock the cop down. The cop fired a warning shot, and Bundy ran. The cop fired a second shot. Bundy fell but wasn't hurt. He was pretending to be hurt to trick the cop and grab the gun, but he still failed. The cop hit him with the butt of the gun and finally handcuffed him. At last, the chase was over. The most dangerous killer in America at that time, on June 25, 1979, the trial against Bundy for his crime at the Chi Omega sorority house started, and then he was tried for Kimberly's murder. Bundy defended himself in court and both times claimed he wasn't guilty. A month later, on July 23, the death sentence was handed down. Just days before the execution, Bundy confessed to killing 36 victims, but new DNA tests suggest he might have killed over 100 people, and he started when he was only 14. What made his trial famous wasn't just his good looks, or the fact that he escaped twice, or even his brutality. It was the fact that it was the first trial ever broadcast on national TV in America. And there was a girl who sat in court every day, convinced he was innocent. Innocent Carol and Boone was his girlfriend and fiancée in front of everyone, even in court. Imagine she gave birth to his child. Ted Bundy's trial was an unprecedented media event. All of America was glued to it. A ruthless killer was desperately trying to cheat death again and again for years. Back then, the term serial killer wasn't even part of the public's awareness. Let me tell you, Ted Bundy was a major reason this term became widespread. His trial was long, public, exposing his crimes live on air, and the repeated use of serial killer on national TV across all states made the term famous. The sentence wasn't carried out until 10 years later. From the day the verdict was announced, cameras from all the channels gathered in front of a Florida state prison. Tons of people came to celebrate. There were signs and fireworks and moments of celebration. They were selling t-shirts with a phrase that everyone was shouting, "Burn him. Burn Bundy." The date was January 24, 1989. After 10 years on death row with all the crowds outside and the celebrations and chants, Ted Bundy was electrocuted. The person who flipped the switch was a woman. Even in death, people hated him. Usually after telling a story like this, I have a message for you, but this time I don't know what to say. I just couldn't feel sorry for this guy, and I don't think any of you could either. I guess everyone was just waiting for the moment he'd finally get caught. It's crazy how acceptance comes only from God. So many people have talked about his story and so many movies have been made about him. Everyone agreed on hating him. No one liked him except that one girl who believed he was innocent in court and even had his kid. There's something important I have to tell you all. Watch your kids more closely. The part that hit me the most in the whole story was when he pointed at an innocent girl, a kid coming out of gym class who just went to him, and he pointed at her. Kids are innocent. Imagine how cruel that is. He didn't do anything. He just pointed at her and she went to him. Teach your kids to say no. Raise them to be strong and confident, and let them know that respect and shyness can end in certain situations. There are times when you should never just go along with something or be shy. That was our story for today. I hope you liked it. If you're into this kind of story, check out this video about a criminal named John Ossinis. His number of victims is way higher than what Bundy did. It's a story I'm sure you'll love. See you in the next video.